Morning, folks. Thanks for joining another Crowd Control HQ webinar. Before we get stuck in, as per usual, just want to make sure everyone can see me and Helen, and you can hear us, and you can see the welcome slide on the screen. So just first off, just let me know that everything looks good. You can see the slides, you can see me and Helen, and you can hear us loud and clear. You just send us a little note in the questions. Yes, Heloisa, yes, thank you. So we're looking good, and I've got, and Matt, yeah, Charlotte, Nikki, great, thanks for joining us, great to have you on board, and thanks for letting us know you can see us and hear us loud and clear. Perfect, so I guess we get started. So again, thanks for joining. Got a great webinar lined up for you today, and we're going to be looking at a really interesting topic, which is how to lift your social media from a tactical channel to something that's a bit more strategic, and it's something we get asked all the time. And I think it's a very good question, and people sometimes aren't sure on how to go about approaching it and thinking about it from, you know, to raise it up to something that's a bit more strategic. So we're going to be looking at that today. I'm really, really excited to have Helen joining us for this session. Hi, Helen.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Oh, did you say Shemai then? Were you doing some Welsh? Did I hear that right?
No, I said hi, Helen, but it might be the technology.
Hello.
Hello.
Lovely to see you on this Halloween grizzly morning. Actually, the weather's Halloweeny, isn't it?
It really is, yeah, it is. So yeah, Helen's going to share some great insights in a few minutes' time around how to approach social media to elevate it to something that's a bit more strategic. And before that, I'm just going to whiz through a few slides. If this is the first time you're sort of joining us at Crowd Control HQ on one of our webinars, just want to set the scene a little bit, like welcome you to Crowd Control HQ and just give you a little bit of info around who we are and what we do. So before that, first off, please, if you're on social, give us a shout out. It's at Crowd Control HQ and at Comms Creatives or at Hel Reynolds, which I haven't got on the slide here, but I know, Helen, you kind of use both quite often. So give us a tweet. We'd love to hear from you and just let us know you're on board. And also any questions, you know, we'll get back to you a bit later. And on the topic of questions, if you've got any questions at any point throughout the session, just submit it into the little questions box. And we should have a bit of time at the end of the session to look at those and answer those for you. So yeah, look forward to hearing from you. So again, here's me. I'm Dan Aston, Marketing Manager at Crowd Control HQ. And as I said already, we're joined by Hel Reynolds, who's an award-winning social media and comms and marketing person, and is the founder of Comms Creatives. And yeah, Helen will give you a little bit of insight into what she gets up to day to day a little bit later. So first off, yeah, Crowd Control HQ, if it's the first time you're joining us. So we're our UK-based social media management platform. And we're really here to help organizations like you take some of the complexity out of managing social media at scale. And there's three areas that we kind of like to say that we are able to support with, and it's the first one's around engagement. So, you know, if you're tasked to or you want to reach and engage more of your stakeholders or customers or residents and citizens, whoever they might be, we're here to help take some of the complexity out of that, make your lives a little bit easier to do that. The next is around management. When you've got a lot of social media accounts or when you've got a lot of social media activity, it can be hard to sort of stay on top of it and manage it effectively and manage all the different people that are doing social and part on behalf of the organization. So again, we can support you with that, take some of the complexity out of that. And lastly is around analyzing what you're doing. So you're putting all this time and effort into social. Is it working? Are you getting the results that you expected? Where are the areas you need to improve, and where are some opportunities to do things a little bit better? So again, we can support you with that to take some of the complexity out of it, save you time and effort, and just make your lives a little bit easier around social media. So that's the 30-second sales pitch. We work with many different private sector and public sector organisations throughout the UK. A few of the logos here on the screen you can see, and it's everything from councils to utilities to healthcare, housing, education, as well as like leisure and police, and all different types of industry sectors and types of organisations, big and small. You know, we're delighted to be able to work with these kind of organisations. So that's a little bit of a flavour of who we work with. And the last plug really for today, if any of the folks on the line today, if you're going to be at the LGcomms Public Service Comms Academy, which is next week, we're going to be there. We'd love to come and love you to come over and say hi. Basically, look out for the stand and look out for the guys in the blue t-shirts. We'll be around. Love to have a chat with you. So yeah, don't be afraid. We're very friendly bunch of folks. Perfect. Okay, so with that, so why are we talking about trying to elevate social media from a tactical channel to something that's a bit more strategic? And before I introduce Helen's content, I just wanted to kind of set the scene a little bit. So there's a recent quote or recent stat that says like 47% of social media marketers say developing strategies to support business goals is their top challenge. So you can allude from that, like, you know, we're all doing social, we feel like we have to do social, we're probably treating it as the topic of the webinar today is like something that can be a little bit more tactical, and it's perhaps not at the crux of the strategies that we're putting together and how we're going to meet our business goals and business objectives. And I just thought it was an interesting point to help drive home why today's topic is something that's quite important and something that we think you should sort of spend a little bit of time thinking about, and if you can invest a bit of time and effort to elevate your social media, it's really going to pay off. And yeah, that's where Helen comes in. So bear with me 1 second, I've just got to change slides here to magically switch from mine to Helen's. So hopefully you're still with us. Hopefully you can see that.
Dan,
can you see anything?
hey, I can see us too now.
Okay, I'm getting the nod from Claire. Okay, I think I broke it for a second, but hopefully it's back up and working. Okay, perfect. You can see it now. Thanks, Heloisa. So, Helena, over to you. Do you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you very much. Great intro, as always. And yes, I can confirm that they are very lovely and personable people when you go to LGcomms. I've had some fun times there with the gang myself. Okay, so I love that you put that stat in about how people really want to be more strategic, and that they feel like a lot of the people that I work with just feel like strategic work is a document. It's like something that you have to create in order to get buy-in from your management. And yes, it is, but today we're going to talk about much more of an approach, a way of doing things, or a way of taking you from just kind of tactics into something that's got a bit more direction. So, next slide, please. Excuse me. I'm Hel. For those of you who already know me, thank you for turning up. You're probably sick of the look of me because I'm very lucky enough to do lots of stuff with crowd control. I only pick the best people to collaborate with. But for those of you who don't, I'm a creative trainer. So all of my work, bar a couple of campaigns every year, is around training other people to be more creative using their social media, and there's some stuff around internal comms and general comms as well. But I'm a specialist in social media. I've won awards for social media, and as had been said, and I always like to put that in because it helps me with my imposter syndrome, and it helps you to realise that other people think I'm okay, all right. But I'm kind of this old lady of social media. So I started at a very tactical level using social media for a local authority. I think at the time when I started to use social media in Monmouthshire County Council, which is a small council in Wales, I was a press officer, and I just thought, I've got this communications strategy where I've got to fundraise to, at the time it was about restoring an old hall that we owned. And I wonder if I could use MySpace for that. So back in the day of MySpace, I was getting the council on there, and I had this amazing kind of eye-opening experience where I thought, actually, people love talking to me like a person on behalf of the council. I was there on MySpace, and they love talking about their lives and community, and they're not actually that disengaged. It's just that we've never been able to talk to them in a way that they wanted to reciprocate that chat. So I've been there from the early days of social media, obviously progressed a bit from the MySpace days. But I've been around, and as well as doing kind of I think a lot of what I've done is just working with organisations and learning as we go. So everything that I'm talking about today is based on real experience, and it's kind of hooked into a little bit of strategy underneath it and a little bit of kind of academic stuff. So yeah, feel free to tweet me or anything on social media. It's always lovely to talk to you. Next slide. So you might know me from such cartoons as, next slide, this one, which I call Viral Susan. I need you to make this go viral for me, Susan. What is it? My strategic framework for engaging stakeholders. I like to put this in just because sometimes people don't know me, but they've seen one of my cartoons on the internet. And that is basically because I've got a strong social media strategy that's aimed at reaching people like you. So if you have seen one of these cartoons, it's because I've been thinking about how can I find a way to reach you in your home feeds, and make you stop and pay attention. And this cartoon is based on that bitter kind of experience, and again, working with clients where you've just got some of the most dry, boring content and an expectation to make everybody love it. It's not easy, and in this case, you're never going to make such a boring document go viral, and we know it, but yet we still have this sense sometimes of, oh, how will I, how when I get brilliant at my work, we'll be able to make stuff go viral. How do people do that? Well, they just, they don't start with this from this point of view where it's just about banging out messages. So we're going to have a look at strategy, but hopefully give us a little thumbs up or a little indication if you have seen one of these cartoons, because I'm interested to know actually from those of you who are there, like what percentage of people will know me through this stuff. Next slide. And we're going to have a look anyway at strategy and tactics. So again, I like to draw everything. And for me, strategy is about how and why we do things. It's the decisions that we make about what we're going to do. And tactics is about what we do. And the tactics stuff is really fun. And sometimes people will ask me to do a strategy workshop with them. So we'll go in and I'll be all primed to do the social media strategy stuff. And then it'll become apparent, even though we will have had lots of conversations, that what they mean by strategy is how can we do our tactics better, rather than here's a roadmap for how we're going to do things. So what kind of different ways can we look at things so that we're doing things a little bit differently? So strategy is something that you decide. It's how and why you do things. Tactics, which we won't be talking about too much today, is the cool stuff. How do you make Facebook posts engaging, or how do you get your Instagram? What kind of stuff can you do on Instagram to make it like really fun? The strategy stuff is how and why. So we're going to have a look at this how and why stuff. It is fun because one thing I want to get across in this session is, yes, you might have to write a social media strategy document that gets signed off. And actually, I think we've got like a little taster session of that on our academy, haven't we, Dan? There's a strategy session.
There is a strategy session, yeah. If you're interested, if you Google Crowd Control HQ Academy, you'll find the lessons there. And the strategy one is, I think it's the first lesson, actually.
Is it the first one? Yeah, great. So that one's there, and that's much more about this kind of, how do you write a strategy? Today we're going to talk about like how do you be more strategic, and this is just about you. You make these decisions. You don't have to justify yourself. You're the expert in your organisation. If you're watching this, you can be more strategic, and I'm going to show you how. And I've got this kind of weird sensation that I want to put the slides across, but I can't. So I'm going to say next slide, please. Okay, so when I'm doing training around being more strategic, I go through all of these P's. I like to make jokes about like we need to do a lot more P's and that kind of stuff. But I call this the Comms Creatives strategic skeleton, because it's like a skeleton for fleshing out what you need to do, the way that you do things, how and why you do things. Also, it's quite Halloweeny, so I thought that was quite good. It's a strategic skeleton. So here are the ones that we go through, but today we're going to go through very briefly, just get you thinking about purpose, people, proposition, personality, and place. The other things are taking you into kind of advanced level strategic thinking, but we're going to go through some good stuff that will definitely help you to just look at things a little bit more differently and make decisions. And I think this is one of the key things that we'll go through as prioritizing things. Next slide, please. So, number one, strategy needs a purpose. So what we'll find so I work with all sorts of comms marketing teams around social media, and the one thing that is kind of apparent that is a pattern sometimes across a lot of different organizations, whether they're small local authorities or big private industry, is sometimes there's just not this real understanding about what social media is achieving for you. And that can be because you came into the job and social media was all there and you didn't initiate it, so you weren't part of like or even if you were, sometimes it was just we better experiment with this and we'll try things out. And that is fine. That's a good tactical move. Better to be out there playing with things and working things out than not. But once you get to start thinking more strategically about this, you have to think about, we have got some smart objectives. So specific, measurable, like objectives that you can actually see outcomes from. Funnel for turning people who are interested in what we're doing into fans. So I'll describe this a little bit because it sounds a little bit jargony with smart objectives and funnels and all of this kind of stuff. But basically, actually, next slide, I'll start with the smart objective. Starting off with a clear sense of purpose is about narrowing things down. So another cartoon, what do we want? Priorities, when do we want them? They're all important. This is sometimes what our organizations are like to us. We're kind of like, what do you want us to do? And they want us to do everything. Well, fine. We can work with that. We're going to have to take some priorities. If you want to have a clear sense of purpose about what you're achieving, you absolutely need to pick out 1 or 2 or 3 maximum highlight areas that you're going to work on, because you cannot put a lot of effort into a lot of things, because what that'll be is spread out, you just being tactical, trying to do everything and doing everything okay. When you pull out, let's say, 3 clear priorities, then you can start to put more effort into them. I always talk about, like, pull out your priorities and put 80% effort into the priorities and 20% effort into everything else. Make that okay. Make something that you're doing wonderful and excellent. So next slide. By objectives and smart objectives, what I mean is very specific and not woolly. So a lot of teams will be quite tactical and they'll say, you know, what's your goal here? And they'll say, we want to get loads more engagement on our Instagram. Well, that's okay, that is a goal, but it's not easy to know, like, where you're going with this. What are you trying to achieve? So more specific would be, we want to drive 100 Instagram followers to sign up to our newsletter by December 2019. So that is something that you can absolutely work towards. Where the hell do you start with that woolly objective? You could go anywhere. There's a zillion ways that you could go with this. And how do you know you've achieved what you set out to achieve? Because you weren't specific enough. So what I'm saying with this kind of prioritizing is, try to give yourself real targets. You don't have to share them with anyone. This is taking a strategic approach, not getting buy-in from your management with a report. So, you know, if you want to just do this yourself, you can do it. If you want to share it with a team, you know, that's doing social media, do that. But it's just about giving yourself a specific target. Now, you'll notice with this objective that there is a clear path here. So there's no creative, it's not tactical. I'm not showing you what you're going to do. We're not deciding how we're going to do this. We're just deciding to do it. So this objective gives you a bit of a funnel. So someone might go, oh, I really like this Instagram post. And then they go, oh, you know, the fact that they've engaged with your post means that they're more likely to engage with your next post. So there's a bit of a funnel there, because they start from, you know, just seeing your stuff to training the algorithm to show you more stuff. But then, you know, you might think about a call to action then that brings them somewhere else, that signs up to your newsletter, and your newsletter may well sell something or promote a service. So you're bringing them through from quite interested into, I'm a fan and I'm going to do a thing. So next slide. We're going from that into this. Right. When you're looking at being more strategic, we're talking now about setting some objectives, aren't we? So try to have a real sense of purpose about what you're doing. Pick out a few things that you really want to achieve and let everything else be a bit more tactical. I want to just kind of share with you something that I've blogged about recently, really, and this is about this workload dilemma. So a lot of people that I work with are finding that they think everything that they're doing, like the jobs we're in, it can be so interesting, and people can say, oh, we're working on this, will you do some social media for it? And then you can find a really interesting story and you want to do that, and you love your job. But when that's, you know, so you have all these ideas about what you can do, you can also find that people in your organization don't stick to priorities. So they'll say, oh, I know that you're working on that, but it'll only take you 5 minutes. Can you just give me a bit of your time and we'll go off and see if we can do something about this? And you go, oh yeah, great, because I want to help. And, you know, I'll just drop a few things and maybe I'll have about 5 hours less sleep in the night and we'll just do that. Great. And then people just keep giving you more and more work, and then you're drowning in work. If you feel a little bit overwhelmed by that, and sometimes we are our own worst enemies because the work that we're doing is so fun and you want to do it all, you're going to have to make some changes, because you'll burn out if you continue to take on all this work and do everything that you want to do and try and keep everyone happy, including yourself and your audience. So when you start to prioritize, you start to it gets easier for you to say, this is where I'm putting my effort. Everything else I'm going to put absolute minimum effort into, or say no. And sometimes saying no is hard, but it's easier to say no in a way that you'll say, I'm sorry, I can't. I've got this huge amount of work on here and I just can't do it. But please prioritize. Please have a sense of purpose, because if you don't, there's no way that you can work in that style without burning out and getting super stressed. And I've done a survey recently on stress in comms, marketing and PR, and the responses I've got are unbelievable. So many people are experiencing this, and I don't want you to be ill. I want you to be strategic. Okay, next one. Thank you. Yes, next one. Moving me on swiftly before I waffle on about stress for about 2 hours. People. Also known as audience segmentation, but I think the people thing is just much simpler. The tactical way of looking at this for your social media is, we're just going to try and reach as many people as we can. We're going to always up our followers. We're going to just hope that those reach stats that come out get bigger and bigger. And it doesn't give you much of an idea about how to do that, actually. Like, where do you go? I can give you a load of tactics on how to increase your reach, about active following and all sorts of things. But who are these people that are following you? The strategic way of looking at this is, we know who we're talking to. We know exactly who we want to talk to. And we're actively attracting those people by creating content that they're going to like, by actively finding them and following them first, or by email campaigns, you know, all the tactics that you can do. But you can't do any of those tactics without knowing who it is you're trying to reach. So for me, I run comms creatives with my sister Leslie, right? So it's comms and it's creative. I could just aim at anyone. Anyone who likes creative comms, come and see me. Like, it's fine. But the creative thing is a bit of a niche, but I want to really start thinking about who specifically. Do I want to reach social media managers? Do I want to reach a head of comms? Am I talking to a head of comms in a public service that has a team of 4? Or am I talking to a huge consumer brand that's got more people than a local authority has in its entire place? You know, sometimes when you know who you're talking to, you can create content that absolutely attracts them, that makes them feel like they're part of your tribe. But you can't do that trying to reach everyone, trying to create something that everyone likes. We all remember that person in school that wanted everyone to like them, and they tried so hard that they were just desperate. You know, they were just, no, don't pretend that you like Manic Street Preachers. You clearly don't. Like, just don't try and be everything to everyone. Pick a thing, and people will like you and respect you for it. So being more strategic is about going, right, who am I talking to here? Next slide. I think I put an example in this. I love dog poo, right? Yes, I did put an example in. Feel free to share that. I love dog poo. Coming from a local authority background, which is now, it's about 8 years since I've worked in a local authority, but I always think it's a good example because it's the kind of thing that, like everyone who works in a council always has to do some form of social media campaign around stopping people from just leaving their dog turds on the ground and not picking them up, and various versions of that, whether it's they're not picking it up or they are bagging it and they're leaving it in trees, whatever it might be. Sometimes it's really easy to just go, right, dog poo, we'll put our stuff out, we'll say don't drop dog poo. Easy as that. And it's not strategic. You've got to start thinking about audiences. Like, okay, so if you're a local authority and you're talking about dog poo, you've got a specific location that you're in. So I live in Newport. So let's say Newport in South Wales, I'm talking to dog owners in Newport in South Wales. Yes, fine, but that's not your only audience. You could create content for people that don't like dogs. Like, not only do you not like dogs, but there's poo everywhere. What are we going to do about this? How can we shame these people into picking up after themselves? Or, asking other people what they think about it. Perhaps you can create some content for parents, because parents will be really scared about the fact that if their child steps in dog poo, there's lots of health implications to that, if they were to put it near their mouth or whatever. Teachers may well have some form of curriculum item that's about the community, and you could create content about how do you get kids to, like, what things kids, pupils, environmental activists. There are loads of sub audiences within just our people that live in our area that you can start to think about. And we cover this on my online course. So I do lots of online social media courses, but the minute you start to narrow your audience down, the content gets irresistible, because you know that it's for you. So you can't help but get engaged by it. So stop trying to think about reaching everyone and start trying to think about meaningful conversations with smaller groups. Local authority example there. Again, in the course, we talk about Quorn and how Quorn might well be talking to, like, anyone who likes vegetable products or, not eating meat. But, you've got vegans, you've got vegetarians, you've got fitness people, people that like high carb. You've got parents who may want to cook in a hurry and not have to be buying meat that's going, that goes off quickly because this stuff is frozen. Like, there are a zillion different audiences you can look at in every single campaign or everything that you're promoting. Next one, please. Proposition. Okay. This is probably the thing that most organizations that I've seen get wrong. They talk about themselves. The tactical thing is, we're just going to go, here's the thing we do. It's great. We're brilliant. Here's this product we've got. You really want that, don't you? Yeah, we're great. Blah, blah, blah. Me. This is social media, not corporate media. So how many people, when you go out socially, do you enjoy when they talk about themselves the entire night and they don't let you get a word in edgeways, or if you say anything, they just kind of go, thanks for your comments. That's what we do. That is the tactical way of doing things. Just push out the services. Proposition is all about understanding the topic of conversation that unites you with your audience. So as an example of this, because I don't think I put it in there, but an example of this is Casper mattresses. So if any of you listen to podcasts, you'll probably know Casper as a mattress provider, because they seem to put adverts in every podcast going. But they are a provider of mattresses, right? So they could consistently go, look at this lovely mattress. Ooh, don't you want that mattress? Various versions of this. Reduction on our mattresses. Or what they do, which I think is far better, is they talk about sleep. We all can talk about sleep. A lovely sleep that you have. People who, like the people that are spending money on Casper mattresses are probably doing it because they're not getting a good sleep and they're trying to find some other new solution. I am someone who suffers with sleep lately, and I'll buy anything that will help me. But the way to draw me into a community is to start talking about sleeplessness, or talking about beautiful, comfortable, like what mattress have you got, but also like what's your favourite duvet? Or when you get into bed, what's the first thing that you do when you wake up? And all of this stuff. It's much more about getting people feeling like they're part of a community. And then when they want a mattress, it's you they're coming to because they feel like they're part of that proposition. But to always be talking about sleep, not mattresses, for me, I'm not talking about training, social media training at all times whenever I'm on social media. I'm talking about comms, what it's like to live in a comms world that's absolutely overwhelming, like I was saying earlier, or all the things that make us laugh, the things that cheese us off, all of those kind of things. That's my proposition, because I don't think people want me to just consistently sell my courses all day, every day. So what's your proposition? Does anybody know what your proposition is? What do you talk about that's the topic that we talk about that isn't you selling your services, ideas or products? Interested if you know, like, let me have a look, tell us in the comments. Next slide, please. Here's an example of this. So Spring Chicken I found on Facebook a while back, and I love it because Spring Chicken sells these kind of, I mean, I don't know what you'd call them, but like aids for people who have dodgy backs, basically. Like I have psoriatic arthritis, so I'm totally down with this crew, right? I've got stiff joints. But generally, these kind of things are sold to an older group of people because they have like a osteoarthritis, usually, or, they're just getting a bit creaky. So what could they do? They could just put lots and lots of pictures. So you can kind of see on this slide, there's a thing that you put on your chair and it nestles into your back, and they sell all these things. But what you can see on the top there is their kind of cover picture. The biggest lie I tell myself is I don't need to write it down, I'll remember it. Now, this is a page that's brilliant at just making people who are of a certain age feel like they're part of a community, slightly chuckling at the challenges of getting a bit older. And they probably flog every 5th post, and 4 of those posts before they come to flogging the product are all of these nice little things like my grandkids are my little miracles, because that's what a lot of people feel. They're trying to get this sense of, yeah, this is who we are, identity. This is way more effective than just going on and on about, here's an article about how to sit comfortably when you're watching Countdown. A bit of a stereotype there, but you know what I mean. We often do this all the time. We try and get really serious about everything and tell people lots of facts and always be the ones that ask people or tell people what they should be thinking, rather than just letting them have a chat about their lives. Coming up. I can't remember what the next one is. I'll see if I can guess while it's coming.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. So I do this, and basically we talk about all things comms and creativity in my Comms Creatives Club on Facebook. Come and join it if you're not in there. Just go put into Facebook Comms Creatives Club. That'll be a knock on the door. Just say that you work in comms and I'll let you in. Next one. Little plug, but also I do what I say. I'm not just telling you, this is not theoretical, it works. Strategy, personality. Now I'm wondering how many of you came to the Crowd Control HQ event in Birmingham recently, because I did a bit on tone of voice, and basically personality is this tone of voice issue. And while I was talking, I kind of made a joke, but it's so true. So I'm going to repeat it here for those of you who've heard it already. A lot of the times I'll go in and I'll say, what's the tone of voice? And people will say, we try and be friendly and more human. And you'll get this all the time. People are saying, be more human. You go on LinkedIn and there's all these people with like hashtag be more human or team human and all of this stuff. Well, I've met loads of humans in my life, and some of them are absolute knobs. Like, human isn't enough. What kind of human? That's not personality. Being friendly. I've met lots of creeps in pubs who are very friendly. I don't want to talk to them. This is not really a strategic way of looking at things, of going, we're just going to be friendly and try and be a bit more human, because, I don't want you to be corporate. That's great. The tactical thing is, don't sound so corporate. But when you start getting strategic, you start to make clever choices about your personality that will set you apart from brands like yours. You may not be in a competitive kind of private industry business where you really want to define yourself, where you want to be the brand of preference. You might be in, you know, any form of organization where people are just stuck with you, like you're the provider of the services that they get. But the one thing that you have to remember is your social media is in people's home feeds amongst all sorts of interesting stuff, loads of stuff that will be personal to them, their favorite bands, someone's just bought a new pair of shoes that they like, you know, all of this stuff. If you don't stand out and surprise people with something that's just a little bit more interesting and full of personality, you're going to get scrolled past. You're not in competition with other people, really. You're in competition with the whole world of the internet and all of the interesting things that are going on. So start thinking about, what is your personality? Think of it like a human, not like just this general woolly kind of, we're going to be more friendly. Next slide, please. I've got a tone of voice workshop coming up. And in that, we talk about the Jungian archetypes. So, I mean, I'm no psychology major, you know what I mean? But there's this book that I read a while back called The Hero and the Outlaw. And it's all about how brands can fit themselves into certain types of personality type, an archetype. So if you're interested, Comms Creatives is a jester. And we're all about enjoyment and connecting with others. Sometimes we go a little bit into a lover. So we're like a comedy lover. Who would that be? Like Jim Carrey in The Mask. So there are elements about the way that we communicate that always fall into somewhere between jester and lover, because that's who we've decided to be. It makes sense because my business is basically me. So it needs to have, it needs to be near to my personality. But also I have Leslie there, and she's a brilliant person at making people feel looked after and having intimate conversations, and we come together, and that's the brand. That's what we want our audience to feel. But there are loads of different ways that you can look at this, whether you might be any one of these: creator, an innocent, a sage, an explorer, an outlaw, a magician, a hero. If we go on to the next slide, there's an example that I took from Vision One. So Vision One are an agency that have a website that were talking about these archetypes, and they made this great little wheel. So an example of another jester archetype would be Skittles. They're much more about this kind of fun, entertaining approach. But you've got all sorts of things in there. You know, look, I'm trying to see now. The lover is Chanel, so they're much more about like this intimate feeling, and all of their communications will have this feeling of like the sexy, intimate thing. Virgin are the rebel. So Richard Branson absolutely fits this kind of archetype of, I'm a rebel, I just do it my own way, I'm a different thinker, and I'm independent, and I just move on from project to project, and I don't care what the rest of the world thinks. All of these kind of things. Yeah, your brand can fit into one of these archetypes. You'll kind of know, you might even end up kind of going, we're between one of three. Once you start to define it a bit more, you've just got personality. People know what to expect from you. Some people won't like it. That's fine. You can't be liked by everyone. And I think this is a real problem with tactical thinking, not strategic thinking. We try to be liked by everyone. I don't want to be liked by everyone. I want to be liked by my key audience that I have already defined. And not everyone will like it, and that's fine. We're all human. So, you can't expect everyone to like you. Next slide. Got some courses on that. Let's move on. If anybody would like to look at my online courses, they're there. Place. So this, I suppose place is a little bit like channels. I'll go into organizations and people will say, we make a bit of content, so we know what we're trying to promote. We make the content and we push it out on all the channels. Well, that is not strategic at all. What people go to TikTok for is very different to what they go to LinkedIn for. So I use Facebook to talk to my friends and family and to talk about things that are kind of personal to me, and I use LinkedIn to talk about comms with comms people. I don't, yeah, I will very rarely use exactly the same. Or sometimes I do, like you can work it out, but you have to just know why, when you're posting to a channel, is this right for the culture there? Have I made something that I know will go down well? There's things that I'll post on Twitter that I've never put on LinkedIn because it's just a different kind of place, or different audience and different expectations. So do you really understand that kind of overall makeup of the city of social media, what Facebook's doing, why people go there, what the culture's like? If you put loads of hashtags in a Facebook post, it looks weird. No one wants that. But if you do it on Instagram, it's fine. So just thinking about the place that you're in, and the place that where your audience is and what they'll expect there. Next slide, please. An example of this is groups and pages. So the one question that I get asked probably the most frequently in the last year is, we want to have a Facebook group, or we've got a Facebook group. How am I supposed to know what to post in the group and what to put in the page? Like, what's the difference? Do I just post the same kind of stuff? And this is back to the culture of the places. And the more you use these things, by the way, the easier it gets, because you just have this instinct for it. But a group, no, I'm not going to say. First of all, I'm going to ask you a question. Would you put a swimming pool in your front garden? Like, would your front garden be the place for you to have a nice swim? It just wouldn't for me.
It's a good question.
For those of you who said, yes, I would, you're exhibitionists, people. I would not want to be hanging around in my swimming costume in the front of my house. If I had the money and I had a garden that size, I might well have a swimming pool in my back garden, because my back garden is a little bit more intimate. If I'm going to have people over for a barbecue, I'm going to have them in the back garden to have that barbecue, not the front, because people will be walking by and they'll be asking for a sausage at the front. No one's going to have a preference of everyone. So your Facebook page is your front garden, and it's come up to Halloween now. So in your front garden, you can hang a lantern, and you can put up a witch's broom and all of that kind of stuff. And you can keep your garden nice and tidy and lovely and attractive for those people who see it. But in the back, that's where you're going to have all the fun stuff. You know, you have real chats. You're not going to stand in front of them and make them sit in a row in your garden and watch you have a broadcast to them. Everyone's going to be milling around, helping themselves to a glass of whiskey, and one person will talk to that person while I talk to this person. That is what a group is. It's a little bit more intimate. When you join, when I bring someone into my barbecue and they don't all know each other, I might say, hey guys, this is Dan, he's come to the party. He's really good at social media stuff. Like, come make him welcome. When it's small, like when the party gets really busy, I'm not going to be able to introduce everyone who's coming in, but it'll be kind of managing itself. This is a group. If you want to do community management, think of it as your back garden. That kind of stuff is strategic thinking about just recognizing the difference between the kind of things people want from you and what you're going to post there. Next group. It's not group, is it? Next slide.
Next group. That's a good analogy, though. Good analogy.
So that is the 5 elements of strategic thinking that I wanted to talk about today. The key for this, I think, for you, is to start thinking about it and not waiting for right answers. A lot of the time with social media, the people that we work for don't know the difference between tactical and strategic. If you could spend about 3 months writing a strategy and then about 3 years getting that strategy approved. Like, fine, do that, but you need to just act on what you know is right. Have a think about this stuff and don't expect right answers. Like, there are a million right answers. Sometimes you can have 2 answers that are opposite and they're both good things to do. Like, it doesn't matter if you choose to be a jester or a hero, as long as you choose to do one of them and you kind of try and make a path. So I'm trying to empower you to kind of say, you've got a hold on this, and just spend a weekend thinking about it. You don't have to write anything down at all. Just work out, like, that's the way that we do things here. I'm going to make this the culture of how we do social media for our brand. And if you want to do it more formally, come on one of my courses and I'll help you. But still, just do it, as Nike would say. Next,
You
Nike,
were the hero, I think, or something like that.
Yes,
from your,
I think they are. Yeah, they're just like, be the hero of your organisation and just do it like Nike. Right, I've put a plug in for my social media online content program. If you'd like to join that, it's brilliant. Just go and have a look at it. You've heard enough from me. If you're enjoying this, you'll enjoy the course because it's much more practical than this. But it's just essentially me talking to you. Next one. If you don't, then you won't like it. Don't bother looking. Great. So your questions, stories, and comments, please. I'm open to any comments, observations, or if you've got any, like, if you really think you're so wrong about that. I love that. I like a little bit of.
Yeah, please, folks. If you use the little questions box, hopefully you see it on the right hand side. I say right, you could have moved it around the screen. But, yeah, send us your questions. But super informative, Helen. I think it's just super nice to have a structure to think about each of these different elements, because I think for folks like us that are working in social media and comms, we know there's all these different elements that we should kind of get formalized, or at least have a think and have a plan to try and be a bit more strategic, but we never know. It can be hard to know like how to start approaching it. So with the P's, just really helps, I think. Yeah, it's really nice to have a bit of a structure to it.
Lovely. Yes, and I think that thing as well around how do you start to do it, I think the key is start to do it. It's better to do a little than do nothing. And I think sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming of like, oh, so much of that to do. Just start with people, like just start with who's the audience we're trying to talk to, or just start with proposition. Like just pick one of them and then start to think around that for a couple of weeks and come back to it. But way better that you start to do a little bit of this than you try and do it all in one big lump, and then it becomes a pain, and then you have to get it all signed off, and it's all
and it never gets finished if it's too big and cumbersome and things. Okay, so we've got thanks folks, we've got a few questions coming in. So Eloisa, my issue, I completely agree about the proposition thing, but I have a problem. The senior management team has the password to our Twitter, and they keep retweeting compliments that are made to us. Okay. So basically, I can see how that would be an issue, because then your Twitter timeline just becomes a massive long feed of compliments, which is just like can make it look like you just have a massive ego, I guess, because you're just loving all these nice things that people are saying about you. And I absolutely hate that. Okay, yeah. So I'll use what you use to try and make them understand we shouldn't just retweet everything that we are mentioned in. So I think it's a good comment.
It is a good comment, and just remember that is a challenge and it's happening. What you can try and do is tackle it with them and make them understand, but just start doing what you think you should be doing at the same time. Like, don't worry about solving that problem. Don't let solving that problem stop you from having a go with some of these things. You can still start to initiate conversations around that shared topic whilst they retweet every single complimentary thing that's ever been going on. Like, again, it is that thing of don't let trying to do everything perfectly stop you from doing anything at all. You can still just crack on and, let them learn from you. They'll learn. If you start to do it in the way that you think you will, you can then demonstrate to them how it's done and show them rather than tell them, if that makes sense. But I feel your struggle on that.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's a very good point, Helen, is if you start doing some of these things which we think are the right things to do, then you'll get the proof to show that it is kind of working a little bit, and that you can do other things other than just retweeting the compliments.
It's always the way I've done it for buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely. So another question from Rebecca. Our company covers housing and nursing homes care. How do you define your audience when it's so varied? Yeah,
I think it's about segmenting it down. So when you think about nursing care, for instance, let's take the housing part out of it and just think of the nursing care thing. I would be having a specific, I'd think about this, but I'm going straight into tactics here, but I'd be thinking, right, we've definitely got different audiences. So the audience for nursing care will probably be like the children of the people who may need that nursing care, if it's for older people, which I've made an assumption of, but it'll be the families as well as that individual, particularly if it's an older person thing. I would think about, well, that's an audience that we need to talk to about that thing, and they're not going to be interested in all the housing stuff. So maybe we can have a separate area or a group or a particular Facebook page or something for them, and that's where we talk about a common subject, which is how to make sure that your relatives feel cared for well, or whatever. With the housing side of things, you've got tenants, but then you've got loads of other different types of audiences. You've got the press. There's the apps. I say this all the time with housing associations. There's no point trying to talk to tenants on Twitter and talk to all of your other housing bods as well. They're not the same conversations. Your tenants really will be much more inclined to talk to you on Facebook, a place that most of them will be using, than going to Twitter and listening to you go on and on about, like, you've won the Chartered Housing Institute of Housing's Rising Star Award. Like, your tenants don't care. They care about the housing around them. They care about the place they live. So the shared topic proposition there would be talking about the place that they live, not talking about the housing services you provide. With the journalist, the proposition is talking about news, not talking about the other things, so it's just about sometimes start to think about the fact that we can't just, as an organisation, communicate everything to everyone in every place. We've got to start thinking a bit more strategically about it. But it's a tough one because it takes a lot of work, and again, don't try and do it all at once.
Yeah, your point there was one of the things I was going to raise as well. Obviously, this is around segmenting your audiences, and if you've got two sort of audiences that are quite well defined and they've got a good element of sort of separation, and think about how you're structuring your accounts. So it would be super hard, as Helen said, to have everything going through one Twitter account or one Facebook page. So just think about how you could maybe segment it that way. So you're segmenting your place for the purpose of having the audiences kind of segmented, if that makes sense. Okay, great. I'm just going to check if we've got any more. Thank you. It's given me confidence with my proposal to have separate pages. Excellent.
Good. Excellent. Yeah.
And I think that's it. So unless folks have still got a few minutes, I'm just thinking we're coming up to 12. We've got a few minutes. If there's any more comments, questions, or stories, we'd love to hear them. But if there's not, or if you want to sort of send us something separately, offline after the session, please, you can just tweet us at Crowd Control HQ, at Comms Creatives, or at Hel Reynolds. We'd love to hear from you. And please do go and check out, obviously. So Helen, your course is it the Comms Creatives courses, classes?
I've got courses, yes. I've got an internal comms content for your enterprise social network, like your Yammer or your workplace at Facebook. I've got the overall social media content program, which is everything about making engaging content. It's really fun. We're in the middle of a run at the moment, and people are coming up with amazing stuff. And then there's a tone of voice. It's a one-off, one day in May. We're going to go through everything you need to create that real kind of flavoursome, personality-ridden tone of voice, and you can come up then with a bit of a playbook for your organisation on this is how we talk. So there's a summer school on creativity coming up as well. There's loads of good stuff. So there's down there is the address for the courses, and I would love to see you there.
Brilliant. And then on our side as well, so if you've kind of enjoyed hearing from Helen and picking up some tips and tricks for social media, then just if you Google, or on the website, but you can Google Crowd Control HQ Academy, and you'll find all the lessons there. I think we've got 14 lessons, and they range from like 5 to 10 minutes, or to about 15 minutes, I think. So
you know what? I met someone at a conference the other day who'd seen them, and he was like, "Oh, you're so tall." He didn't realise I was so tall. He thought I was a short woman because like now there was quite a lot of distance between my head and the top.
Right.
So he didn't realise it was me because I'm actually 6 foot in real life. I'm not as small as I look in there. So my personal brand's going a little bit petite. I like it.
It's the power of, I guess, like the editing and the videos and the technology.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Next time, can you make me look slim?
I'll have to hone my skills. I'm still an amateur with video skills. But
That's way beyond your capabilities.
I'm sure it can be done. Not that it needs to be done. All right, we're going to stop there. Right, thanks everyone for joining us today. Hope you have a great day. Happy Halloween. Hopefully, look forward to seeing you on a future Crowd Control HQ webinar. Bye for now.
Bye everyone. Happy Halloween. Right.